Welcome back. We continue our conversations with lawmakers from across the state. Joining us tonight, State Representative Jason Saine, a Republican from Lincoln County, and State Representative Duane Hall, a Democrat from Wake County. I want to thank you both for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
So we had a big jobs announcement this week that there's a tire manufacturer coming to Edgecombe County. There's hundreds of jobs coming to a rural community. We often don't get to say those two things together. I'm going to start with you, Representative Saine. What makes this type of announcement possible here in North Carolina?
Well, good fiscal policy. We've had years of it, and so that's why North Carolina looks very attractive to companies, not just within the United States, but globally, as we're seeing that we're really seeing the benefit of a lot of good tax policy, a lot of good economic development policy, and a lot of good education policy. I mean, we are an attractive state for companies to come to. We've got a ready and able workforce. We're continuing to invest in that and to invest in our people and to invest in our schools. And so folks know from outside of our state, North Carolina is the place to be.
So, Representative Hall, is North Carolina doing the right stuff to attract businesses?
It clearly did this week. This is not just 800 jobs, it's 800 good jobs. Average salary $56,000, whereas that county is normally $32,000. Tax policy matters, but universally, North Carolina across America, whenever they ask companies, the number one thing they say are the people, the education level, the workers to actually do it. And that's something historically we've done a good job. I question some of the things we've done more recently, but this particular time, it's $2.5 billion economic benefit to North Carolina for $20 million investment over 12 years. Again, this is an example of doing an incentive program the right way.
I think we should also point out, in addition to those jobs that were announced, the governor also announced 639 more jobs today for Burke, Iredell, and Gaston County. So this was really a big jobs week for the state.
He announced some more last week as well. So a lot of it is the image of the state. I think we've done some things recently that have made us more attractive.
Representative Saine, today Attorney General Josh Stein had a press conference announcing that he's suing a drug manufacturer that he says was giving kickbacks to doctors who were prescribing a fentanyl drug that's meant for cancer patients, but prescribing it to non-cancer patients. This all goes down to this fight against the opioid epidemic that we have here in North Carolina. This is a tough battle.
And I'm sorry, Larry, I had a little trouble hearing your question.
Well, this has to do with the opioid struggle that we've had here in North Carolina.
I think it has a lot to do with just overprescription, period. What we've seen is the drug manufacturers and doctors who are too willing to prescribe things that their patients really don't need. There's certainly a profit motive behind that, I think, and just the bigger crisis of overprescription. We've got folks that have been overprescribed in terms of opioids and other drugs that we really should crack down on, and I think he's right in doing that. Just recently, a couple of months ago, my mother was hit by a pill popper across the center line, and it certainly caused concern for our family. She's doing much better. I'm glad to say that. But again, for someone who had too much access, too much ready access to things that he clearly didn't need, and certainly put other people in jeopardy. So I think this is the right move. I think we've worked on this in a bipartisan fashion, and I think we should continue to do so.
This was an aggressive step for the Attorney General to take to go after one of these drug manufacturers.
It needed to be taken. This is a company that was paying doctors to speak on behalf of drugs that they wanted those doctors to prescribe. Company's name's ISIS, and employees of that company were posing as both patients and prescribers. I mean, that's fraud. This is a drug that is 50 times stronger than heroin, 100 times more potent than morphine. I think that North Carolina's patients deserve to get to the bottom of this.
Representative Saine, I also wanted to point out the Industrial Commission came out this week with some new recommendations for rules for people who are going to be on workers' comp claims here in the state, dealing with these opioid prescriptions and saying that folks will need to be taking drug tests. This seems to be something that the state is attacking from all sides.
It is, and I think we're right in being aggressive, like I pointed out, just from a personal experience, but we know it's tearing apart communities, it's certainly tearing apart families, and it's putting our citizens in jeopardy. I think as we have done, and we need to continue, have a united front on all levels to combat this crisis.
Okay, I'm going to stick with you, Representative Saine. You were recently elected as the chairman of the American Legislative Exchange Council. Most people know that by ALEC. First of all, congratulations. And
Thank you.
Second of all, tell me a little bit about you being in this role.
Well, it's a lot of years coming. As I first got into the legislature, got involved with ALEC. I'm also involved in the National Council of State Legislators, NCSL. So I do both. It's a great opportunity to interact with other legislators from across the country. And it's also really nice to show them what North Carolina is doing right. So as other states come to us to say, how are you doing these things and what are you doing right, and share with that. But it's also a way to learn, to exchange with other legislators. As we look at Kansas, they cut taxes much like we did, but they didn't control their spending. We've learned from their mistake. We're in a much better place. So as I've learned and kind of navigated the organization, was a state chairman and still am state chairman in North Carolina, but also became a member of our board, of the national board, and was picked a year early because of some other circumstances where Senator Niederhauser from Utah is going to chair the Senate Leaders Association. So I'm pleased to do it. It's a great opportunity. It means a lot for North Carolina. It puts me and our state in interaction with folks really from across the globe. So I'm humbled by it. I'm honored by it. And look forward to it. We always send a very good delegation. We just had a meeting in Charlotte back in the spring of ALEC, record turnout for that. So we've got a lot to be proud of in North Carolina, and I'm glad to be the chairman of this national organization at the right time as folks are looking to our state to see what we're doing right legislatively.
And Representative Hall, I'm going to let you comment on this just simply because folks on your side of the aisle often are not necessarily thrilled with the advice that ALEC is sending down to the states.
I'm happy for my friend's personal achievement. Needless to say, I'm not a big fan of the model legislation that comes out of ALEC. I mean, voter ID was a big one. It's as much money as the Koch brothers poured into that. You would think their money could go to passing constitutional laws. Lots of examples for private virtual schools. There's so much room for fraud in that. Not a great idea. Vouchers, privatization, usually for big companies. I'm a member of NCSL, which is a more bipartisan group. He was correct that North Carolina is getting a lot of national attention. I mean, our national president was also Dan Blue from North Carolina.
Okay. Well, I would like to thank you both so much for joining us, and I hope that you have a great holiday.